I am a top-tier specialist in obstetrics and gynecology, highly praised throughout my career with an unblemished record. Yet, during a prenatal checkup for my husband's childhood friend, an accident occurred, almost leading to a professional error resulting in the tragic loss of both mother and child. I rushed to catch up with her, only to accidentally overhear a conversation between her and my husband. "Didn't I tell you not to appear before Grace before you give birth?" my husband chastised with a frown. Sarah smiled, stroking her pregnant belly. "Just this once. I only wanted to see if she was truly suitable to be a mother to our child. I'm also thinking of our child, Marcus, please don't be angry." Hearing this, my husband immediately breathed a sigh of relief, saying dotingly, "Don't let it happen again. Once the child is born, I'll naturally take care of your mother's affairs for you. Just one thing, you must never appear before Grace again." Upon hearing this, I couldn't help but clench my fists. I never imagined that a plot twist I disdained in novels would play out in my own life. My husband, who supposedly loved me more than life itself, had betrayed his vows and had a child with someone else. I gently touched my lower abdomen, where a tiny life had just successfully implanted. This was the child I had conceived after enduring countless fertility treatments. Given the circumstances, the continuation of his family line was no longer my concern. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and tell us where you're listening from in the comments. Watching the two figures leaning into each other, a sudden wave of nausea surged up my throat. My retching immediately caught their attention. My husband, Marcus, instantly let go of Sarah's hand, a slightly shocked expression on his face, and quickly walked towards me. I suppressed my physical discomfort, shrugged off Marcus's gentle pat on my back, and spoke first. "No need to explain. I saw everything." Marcus was about to offer a defense but was instantly speechless. His expression turned slightly displeased, and his brows furrowed. Ignoring him, I maintained my professional demeanor and finished my statement to Sarah. "I came to tell you that your prenatal checkup showed an issue. The fetus has a developmental anomaly, and you must." Before I could finish, my left cheek stung with a fiery pain. Sarah's eyes blazed. "Grace, you can't have children yourself, so you're cursing the child in my womb? How could you be so cruel?" Before I could respond, Marcus, who was beside me, immediately glared at Sarah and raised his hand, but it didn't fall for a long time. Seeing this, Sarah realized her true nature had been exposed and immediately started crying with red eyes. "I'm sorry, Dr. Grace, I just spoke in a moment of panic. Can you understand a mother's concern for her child?" Seeing my silence, she immediately puffed out her pregnant belly and prepared to get on her knees before me. "Dr. Grace, I didn't mean it. You've never been pregnant, so you don't understand this feeling of deep concern for a child. I just made a mistake that any mother would make, which is why my words were inappropriate. I'm getting on my knees for you, Dr. Grace, please forgive me." Sarah yelled, her voice hoarse and desperate. Her wailing instantly attracted numerous patients who gathered to watch. Before her waist could even bend, Marcus helped her up, cautioning her to be careful of the child in her belly. Marcus opened his mouth, staring at the swollen slap mark on my face. After a moment of hesitation, he still spoke up to plead for Sarah. "Grace, she couldn't help it. Please don't hold this small matter against her." I used to love listening to Marcus speak. His voice was like snow on a distant mountain, calming and pleasant. But now, it sent shivers down my spine. I turned my head and glanced at the whispering, pointing patients who were gathered around. I coldly completed the sentence. I had been interrupted from saying, "The fetus is suspected of a genetic mutation and requires an immediate re-examination with imaging." No sooner had I finished than Sarah slapped me again, but I dodged it by turning my head. She angrily accused me in public. "Grace, I treated you with repeated respect because you are a top-tier specialist in obstetrics and gynecology, but you can't curse the child in my womb just because you haven't been able to conceive for years. In the clinic office, you personally told me that all the checkups were normal. How can you deny it once we're outside and even speak ill of the child in my womb? I know you envy us expectant mothers, and I sympathize that you don't have your own child and can't experience the joy of motherhood, but you cannot abandon your medical ethics." At her words, the surrounding chatter grew louder. They cursed me, calling me inhuman, unethical, unfit to be a doctor. Some even threatened to report me and throw excrement at my house. I listened to all the unbearable comments with a dark expression. Many of these people were mothers who had given birth successfully under my care. The plaques of appreciation they sent were still hanging on the clinic office wall. Marcus pulled Sarah closer, shielding her completely behind him, isolating her from the probing gazes of the crowd. Then he spoke in a low voice, Grace, I admit I didn't discuss this with you first, but the child in Sarah's belly is the family's first grandson. I can't let you act recklessly. You apologize to Sarah immediately. Don't ruin your reputation at the hospital by being so jealous. Hearing the displeasure in Marcus's tone, I couldn't help but sneer. He actually thought I was just making up this excuse because of jealousy. I never imagined he would see me as such a petty individual who couldn't distinguish right from wrong. Apologize? In your dreams. With that, I turned and left, ignoring the shock of the crowd behind me and the hatred on Sarah's face. After all, I had done my duty by informing Sarah of the situation. How she chose to proceed was no longer my concern. After all, besides an increased risk of difficult labor, she also faced the risk of fetal malformation. If I hadn't carefully noticed her unusually large pregnant belly, I wouldn't have discovered this situation. When she came for her checkup, her 7-month belly was as large as a 9-month one, almost at term. I casually asked about it, and she proudly boasted about how much her husband doted on her, how he personally brought her a constant stream of tonics during her pregnancy, and how he had splurged generously to arrange a specialized postpartum care facility for her in advance. Now that I thought about it, it was all meant for me to hear. As soon as I entered the clinic office, I saw a suspension notice for a week placed on my desk. I scoffed, grabbed the suspension notice, and immediately walked out. I kicked open the administrator's office door and slammed the suspension notice onto the desk. Robert, what is the meaning of this? The administrator looked troubled. Dr. Grace, I have no choice. After all, Mr. Marcus is the investor in the hospital. I'm just following orders. Mr. Marcus said that as long as you apologize to Ms. Sarah obediently, he will immediately retract the order, and it won't affect your international surgical observation 2 days from now. That was the first practical application of a world-leading technique, a spot I had worked so hard to secure. He was willing to destroy my efforts for Sarah. I steadied myself and said coldly, don't forget, even with Marcus's investment, if I wasn't here, your hospital would still collapse and go bankrupt. It was I who built the hospital's brilliant future, not Mr. Marcus. If I were to switch hospitals, do you think this hospital would still have its household name recognition? The administrator's face instantly turned pale. After a moment of thought, he immediately revoked my suspension notice. If I hadn't joined this hospital first and built its reputation with my medical skills, he, Robert, would have long ago gone bankrupt and been homeless. And only invested in the hospital after its reputation had been established. Without me, they would be a disorganized mess that couldn't amount to anything. Moreover, half of Marcus's investment in the hospital was actually mine. Looking at the clarification statement that popped up on my phone, I curled my lips. That's more like it. That truly aligns with your far-sighted style, administrator. It doesn't negate all the years I've worked hard for this hospital. As soon as I left the office, a WhatsApp message from Marcus popped up. Several messages came in a row, all of them, without exception, demanding that I apologize to Sarah. He explained that the child in her belly couldn't have any mishaps, and he had to protect her until she gave birth. I know what I did was wrong, but it concerns the continuation of his family line. I have no choice. Looking at the latest message that popped up below, I immediately blacklisted Marcus on WhatsApp. I didn't believe he had no choice. There's no such thing as forcing someone against their will in this world. Thinking this, I immediately contacted a private investigator to help me investigate Sarah. Don't leave any traces. After it's done, I'll give you $100,000. After hanging up, I turned and went back to the clinic office. Not long after, I received feedback from the detective. Sarah and Marcus were childhood sweethearts. They had grown up together. Sarah's mother had even worked as a nanny in the Xie family for several years. They relied on each other, and half a year ago, Sarah's mother was diagnosed with cancer and urgently needed a large sum for treatment. Sarah went to Marcus for help. Marcus helped her out of old affection, but she designed a scheme against him, which led to the child in her belly. I sneered and continued reading, but I read too quickly to comprehend the text message. It wasn't until I confirmed several times that I wasn't seeing things that my eyes widened abruptly. I never imagined Sarah had such a past. No wonder she was so good at acting. After reading all the information, I asked the detective to find more evidence, otherwise, Marcus wouldn't believe baseless accusations. Then I went home directly after work. As soon as I pushed open the door, I saw Marcus in an apron, arranging a table full of dishes, all my favorites. He placed the last bowl of soup on the table, then eagerly pulled me to sit down. Wife, hurry and try it. See if my cooking skills have declined. Seeing him act as if nothing had happened, my hair stood on end, and I felt immense agony. How could he be so calm? Staring at the soup bowl in front of me, the familiar feeling of nausea surged up again. Marcus's gentle face instantly showed cracks, but he forced himself to hold back from erupting. I knew he was waiting for me to speak. This was his usual subtle trick. After rinsing my mouth and recovering, I spoke first. I will not apologize to Sarah, nor will I raise the child in her belly. Drop the idea. With that, the long-repressed Marcus immediately broke down. Grace, it's just an apology. Are you going to be so petty about such a small matter? I admit I was inconsiderate in this matter, but you are my wife, you should be more understanding of my difficulties, not constantly go against me. Anyway, you can't have children in this lifetime. I was merely seeking a compromise, also for your sake. Do you want to be gossiped about and called a barren woman by outsiders? Hearing this, the nausea that had subsided surged up again. After I finished throwing up, I questioned him coldly, who says I can't have children in this lifetime? I clearly already, Marcus scoffed, interrupting me. Stop giving me false hope. You've been recuperating for years, seen top doctors nationwide, but why? Our belly remains motionless. I know it's hard for you to accept this child, but this is the best solution I could think of. Can you please stop being so unreasonable? Hearing this, the words that were about to come out were instantly stuck in my throat. It seemed he wouldn't believe I was pregnant. Seeing my silence, his tone softened. Grandma already knows about the child in Sarah's belly and has even prepared the family registry. As soon as the child is born, it will be registered under your name, and we'll announce to everyone that it's yours. I've gone this far for you, you should be content. I stood up straight, holding on to the chair back, and let out a cold laugh. He wasn't doing this for me at all, he was clearly doing it for the Xie family's reputation. Over the years, because I hadn't conceived, rumors had gradually spread. I thought someone like Marcus, with his elite education, wouldn't be bothered by such nonsense, but it turned out I was too naive. My heart felt tightly clutched, aching so much I couldn't breathe. I gritted my teeth, glaring at him with cold eyes, and said chillingly, then let's divorce. After the divorce, you. Before I could finish, Marcus angrily overturned the table, dishes shattering with a deafening crash. The butler and maids rushed over in alarm. Marcus clenched his fists, suppressing his anger, then released them and sighed. Wife, I don't agree to a divorce. Don't even think about it. This child simply came out of Sarah's belly. You'll even be spared the pains of childbirth. I planned so much for you, why don't you understand? Just then, Marcus's phone rang with an urgent tone. After answering, Marcus's face instantly changed. Wait there, I'm coming right away. With that, he hurried out. I couldn't help but feel a chill in my heart. Sarah merely said she had no appetite, and he cared that much. It was just the continuation of his family line, after all. Since the Xie family had an heir, and it was an incestuous union, then the matter of continuing the family line was no longer my concern. Marcus suddenly stopped in the foyer, turned back, and said hesitantly, Grace, to protect you, I've already decided to keep the child and abandon the mother. Don't cause any more trouble. With that, he disappeared out the door. The butler and several maids were cleaning up the mess on the floor. I glanced at it, then immediately walked upstairs. I also booked an abortion surgery for the next day. This child, after all, came too late. When I came out of the operating room, the head surgeon was my own apprentice. I didn't expect the usually quiet girl to actually ask me if I regretted it. I smiled. No regrets. Before being a mother, I am a person. I have the right to exercise my rights. Besides, the Xie family doesn't lack this one child. She nodded and immediately went to dispose of the medical waste. I looked at the splash of vivid red in her hand, as brilliant as a blooming red rose. I remembered the first bouquet Marcus sent me was red roses. I stopped her, took out my phone, took 2 pictures, and sent them to Marcus. This way, he would have seen his unborn child. Unexpectedly, the next second, Marcus's call came in. Grace, what nonsense have you sent me? You're not deliberately trying to sicken me to protest, are you? I let out a weak, cold laugh. Sickening? What you call sickening is the son you've been yearning for, just undeveloped. Grace, stop joking. I know your physical condition very well, you couldn't possibly be pregnant. As a top-tier specialist in obstetrics and gynecology, you know medical waste is everywhere. Don't think I don't know these are just your little tricks. Even though I had given up on him, hearing those words firsthand, my heart still couldn't help but ache. Marcus, you will regret this. After saying that, I immediately hung up. Even if Sarah's child was born, the Xie family wouldn't be satisfied. Not to mention when Marcus learned the full tea. Ruth. As soon as I arrived home, I heard Sarah and Marcus's joyful laughter. The lively sound ceased abruptly when they saw me enter. Sarah nudged Marcus with a few glances, and he spoke softly. Sarah is nearing her due date. I need you to take care of her personally. I've requested leave for you from the hospital. Starting tomorrow, you don't need to go to the hospital. As he spoke, a vacation notice immediately popped up on my phone. I clutched my phone. It seemed Robert hadn't taken my words seriously. I retorted, a nanny can handle something like this. The family isn't short on staff. Marcus's face instantly hardened. Grace, you are a top-tier specialist in obstetrics and gynecology. No one can compare to you when it comes to caring for a pregnant woman. You don't need to cook. You just need to check on the child in her belly every day. With that, he handed me an invitation. I looked at the familiar cover and lettering. I couldn't help but be surprised. Although the Xie family had some involvement in medicine, securing an invitation of this caliber must have taken considerable effort. After all, it was a pivotal medical symposium, not something one could attend just with money. And I had just obtained one yesterday. I just didn't expect him to go to such lengths for Sarah. Seeing me take the invitation, both of them immediately assumed I agreed. Marcus turned and pinched Sarah's cheek, dotingly saying, "Your wish has been granted. Now you can rest easy and focus on your pregnancy." Sarah smiled, stroking her pregnant belly, and nodded, her eyes full of undisguised triumph. Unexpectedly, the next second, I publicly tore up the invitation. "You're mistaken. I don't agree." Then I scattered the shredded pieces in front of him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw the maid serving 2 or 3 bowls of tonics. I couldn't help but remind her, in late pregnancy, it's best to eat small, frequent meals. Otherwise, it will only increase the chance of difficult labor. Sarah not only didn't appreciate it but instead complained to Marcus, "Marcus, look at her. She's cursing me like this. How can I trust her to be a good mother to my child?" "Perhaps it's better if," Marcus spoke, cutting off her next words. "Grace is just trying to be helpful. Don't always assume the worst." Then, he looked at me with a cold face. "Grace, what are you making a fuss about now? I'm not discussing this with you, I'm informing you. Starting today, you will take care of Sarah until she gives birth. Consider it getting to know the child in advance." Seeing his resolute tone, I couldn't help but feel a pang of sorrow. "I'll say it again, I don't agree." Seeing this, Sarah said with red-rimmed eyes, "I'm only thinking of the child in my belly. I just want him to be born smoothly under Dr. Grace's care." Sarah's incessant sobbing drilled into everyone's ears, and the attending maids began to whisper among themselves. "Grace, can't you think about me more? If it weren't for your inability to conceive, and Grandma pushing so hard, I wouldn't have been forced to come up with this method. Are you going to force me to divorce you too?" Upon hearing this, I found it amusing. He actually made his betrayal sound so noble and high-minded. "Divorce? Fine, let's divorce. Since the continuation of his family line is now assured, you naturally don't need me anymore. This marriage ends here." With that, I directly pulled out the divorce agreement I had prepared yesterday, along with the abortion certificate I had just obtained. I added, "To avoid any custody or property disputes, I've directly aborted the child in my belly. Consider it a celebration of Mr. Marcus welcoming a precious son. Marcus, you no longer need to feel pressured. Are you satisfied with this grand gift I'm giving you?" Marcus and Sarah were both stunned, but quickly reacted, immediately seizing the opportunity for herself. "Marcus, since Grace has suggested divorce, why don't you agree, eh? And then marry me? That way, the child in my belly won't have to suffer the pain of mother and child being separated." No sooner had she finished speaking than she screamed, startled by the water glass Marcus had thrown. "Don't forget, what's between us is merely a transaction. You know exactly how this child came to be. I'm warning you again, the title of Mrs. Grace is for Grace alone. If I hear such talk again, I will immediately stop your mother's medication." Hearing this, Sarah bit her lip, glaring at me resentfully from the side. He picked up the abortion certificate from the floor, his eyes wide as he read it word by word. Seeing the official stamp at the end, a hint of confusion flashed in his eyes. He then recalled the photos I had sent him not long ago. He immediately understood, disdainfully tossing the certificate aside. "Grace, stop being ridiculous. No one knows your physical condition better than I do. You couldn't possibly be pregnant. These childish tricks end here. You've had your fun." He still stubbornly believed I was lying to him. It was truly laughable. "Marcus, whether you believe it or not, I'm stating it all here today. I will not serve Sarah until she gives birth, nor will I raise the child in her belly, nor will I agree to have this child registered under my name. Also, the divorce agreement is real, and the abortion certificate is also real. With that, I turned to leave. Unexpectedly, Marcus grabbed my arm. His expression was furious. Grace, I told you I don't agree to a divorce. Sarah and I are not what you think. I just made a deal with her. She helps me have a child, and I promise to save her mother's life. I swear to you, as soon as this child is born, I will immediately arrange for her to be sent abroad. She will never appear before you again in this lifetime, nor will she ever see the child again. I've gone to such lengths for you. Are you still going to demand a divorce, Grace? Do you have no heart? At his words, I slapped him twice. My expression was icy as I said, heart? Marcus, how dare you talk about a heart with me? I admit I have a hard time conceiving, but it's not impossible to have children. I've spent so much thought and energy studying obstetrics and gynecology. I know my body better than anyone. You casually say I can't have children, and then use that as a grandiose excuse to legitimize your marital infidelity and having a child with someone else. Do you think I'm blind? That I wouldn't notice being publicly humiliated by infidelity on such a grand scale? Marcus was instantly speechless. He rarely saw me in such a furious state. In all our years together, I had always been courteous in my dealings with people. So much so that he had forgotten I also had claws. Ignoring him, I pried his hand off and turned to leave. Marcus immediately chased after me without a word. Sarah, seeing this, immediately staged a fall on the spot. She hoped to stop Marcus, but her movements were too forceful, and her water broke. Marcus, save me, save the child in my belly. It hurts, I'm in so much pain. Sarah shrieked at the top of her lungs. Everyone in the villa was scrambling in a panic. Marcus instantly panicked. Wait there, I'll call an ambulance right away. With that, he was about to help Sarah. But amniotic fluid was flowing too quickly. If he helped her up, it would surely accelerate the loss of amniotic fluid. At that rate, Sarah might not even last until the ambulance arrived. I clenched my fists, bit down, and spoke up to stop him. Stop. If you help her, you'll be responsible for the tragic loss of both mother and child. I had to exaggerate the situation to make Marcus stop, but thought I was trying to harm her. She shrieked, Marcus, don't listen to her. She already has it in for my child, and now she probably wishes I'd die right away. Don't think I haven't read up on obstetric knowledge. When your water breaks, you're supposed to lie flat to reduce amniotic fluid loss and prevent the child from dying of hypoxia. That's generally true, but her water breaking wasn't by the book, it was due to an accident. If she blindly tried to get up, it would only accelerate the amniotic fluid loss. Let alone lying down, by the time she even managed to get up, the amniotic fluid might have been completely depleted, let alone saving the child in her belly. Marcus, think carefully. That's your child in her belly. If you let her continue to act recklessly, don't blame me for not warning you of the consequences. I coldly ordered Marcus to stop his movements. Then I turned and instructed several maids to follow my directions. After a series of urgent interventions, the flow of amniotic fluid from Sarah's body slowed. At that moment, several doctors rushed in through the door. Sarah was lifted onto a stretcher by the medical staff. I was about to turn and leave, but Marcus forcibly dragged me along. I told you, as soon as the child is born, I'll send Sarah away. I'm a man of my word. Grace, I want you to see with your own eyes that I haven't betrayed you, nor have I cheated. Outside the operating room, Marcus paced back and forth, his expression anxious. Through the operating room door, I heard Sarah screaming. This couldn't be entirely blamed on her, it was Marcus's decision. To ensure the child's health, he refused to give Sarah an epidural. Sarah's wails annoyed me immensely, but what baffled me even more was why Marcus wouldn't agree to a divorce. Could it really be, as he claimed, that he couldn't live without me? Such words were only fit for fooling children. Marcus, I have clearly stated my desire for a divorce. Why won't you agree? If you're worried about the vows we made at our wedding, I promise you now, if anyone questions the reason for our divorce in the future, I won't mention Sarah's involvement. I'll simply state that we had irreconcilable differences and divorced peacefully. But no matter what I said, Marcus S.I. MPLY sat silently in the chair, not responding or refuting. After a short while, news came from the operating room. Marcus immediately stood up, grabbing the doctor before he could even catch his breath. What about the child? Is the child healthy? The doctor's face was grim. He roughly shook off Marcus's hand. Mr. Marcus, the fetus was too large and in an abnormal position, leading to difficult labor. We must perform an emergency C-section. Otherwise, it will result in the tragic loss of both mother and child. Please sign quickly. A nurse quickly handed the surgical consent form to Marcus. Marcus turned to look at me. I ignored him. He then swiftly signed the form. The doctor glanced at me, surprised. Dr. Grace, you're here. Why weren't you called for this surgery? Your skills are the best here, and you're most familiar with this kind of situation. I said blandly, Dr. David, I'm on vacation. Dr. David understood and immediately walked into the operating room. The door closed tightly again. It seemed I really should thank Marcus for arranging my vacation, otherwise, I would have had to deliver Sarah's baby. I had already made my concessions, now it was his turn. Marcus, I don't have time to quarrel with you. I've already filed a divorce petition and booked a plane ticket to go abroad tonight. You have 1 month to consider. Once the waiting period is over, whether you agree to the divorce or not, I will directly file for a forced divorce. With and her child as evidence, you'll have a hard time winning. At my words, Marcus finally couldn't contain himself. Grace, are you truly going to divorce me? All these years we've been together, are you really just going to throw away our relationship? I nodded. Seeing the certainty in my eyes, Marcus opened his mouth, then coldly refused. Even if you file for a forced divorce, with me here, you still won't be able to get divorced. I clenched my fists. How could he be so sure that the court wouldn't rule in my favor? Just then, the operating room light went out. The doctor emerged holding a child, his expression grave. Mr. Marcus, where did the expectant mother have her previous prenatal checkups? Marcus looked confused, and his assistant immediately explained to the doctor. The doctor hesitated for a long time before finally speaking. Mr. Marcus, Miss Sarah gave birth to a deformed child. Look, the child has a massive head but is missing a leg, and even the fingers aren't fully formed, they're even webbed together. How could such a significant anomaly not be detected in prenatal checkups? Mr. Marcus, I'm afraid someone deliberately manipulated this. You should report it to the authorities sooner rather than later. With that, Dr. David shook his head and left. Nurses wheeled Sarah back to her hospital room. Marcus stumbled, reeling from the news. The assistant looked flustered. Mr. Marcus, ever since Miss Sarah became pregnant, she's always been cared for by a private doctor. I also accompanied her many times, but so many prenatal checkups and anomaly scans never detected anything abnormal. How could a deformed child suddenly be born during delivery? Marcus said coldly, confine the private doctor. I'll deal with this after I've handled things here. The assistant acknowledged and left. Just then, Grandma suddenly arrived. Marcus, where's the child? Is it a boy or a girl? Grandma asked excitedly. Marcus shook his head and remained silent. I calmly answered for him, it's a boy. Grandma was overjoyed, clasping her hands together. Thank goodness. The family finally has an heir. With that, she immediately instructed the butler to announce to everyone and prepare for a celebratory banquet. Grandma took my hand, saying gently, Grace, don't blame Marcus. I was the one who told him to keep it from you. He was also thinking of the continuation of his family line. As his wife, you should understand how heavy the burden on him is. I carefully pulled my hand away. Smiling faintly. I understand. After all, with such a vast family enterprise, how could there be no heir? Grandma's smile widened when she saw I wasn't making a fuss. Grandma knew you were a good child. Marcus truly chose well when he married you back then. Marcus, standing nearby, interrupted Grandma. Grandma, the child in Sarah's belly cannot be kept. It's a deformed child. Marcus let out a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted. Grandma, on the other hand, couldn't bear it and immediately fainted. The scene once again turned into utter chaos. I tried to leave amidst the confusion but was stopped by the butler. Mrs. Grace, young Marcus instructed that you are not to leave yet. I nodded and looked behind me. Marcus was currently negotiating with the doctor. Just then, my phone chimed several times. It was messages from the detective. I pretended nothing was amiss and put my phone back in my pocket. I sat quietly to the side. Until came over. His expression was haggard. Grace, I don't have time to discuss the divorce with you now. Before he could finish, a scream erupted from the hospital room from Sarah. He immediately rushed over. She had her hands covering her head, her expression terrified, clearly in a state of madness. Upon seeing Marcus, she shrieked even louder. She casually picked up a cup from the table and threw it at Marcus. My child can't be deformed. I gave birth to a healthy child, it can't be deformed. Impossible, impossible, impossible. Sarah's expression was frantic, she kept repeating impossible and even bit the nurse who approached her. The midwife explained. Miss Sarah saw the deformed child before she lost consciousness, which led to. The rest was implicitly understood by everyone present. Marcus's patience snapped. He rubbed his shoulder, which had been hit, and angrily said, "Give her a sedative." The nurse immediately went to prepare it. The day she came to me for her prenatal checkup, I told her that the child in her belly was deformed. But you didn't believe me and didn't take her for a follow-up examination. I coldly watched as Sarah was forcibly held down by the nurses and given a sedative. If had gone for a follow-up examination that day, perhaps she wouldn't have reached such a state of mental breakdown. Marcus recalled my words from that day. He had even sided with Sarah and suspended me. He was instantly filled with remorse. "Grace, I'm sorry." That apology caught me off guard. He rarely apologized to me. He usually handled conflicts with cold indifference, believing time would smooth over all disagreements. He firmly believed in that philosophy. Thus, everyday frictions and disputes usually just faded away unresolved. "Since you admit you're sorry, then sign the divorce agreement. It will preserve the Xie family's reputation. I also won't proactively mention Sarah's involvement. It's a win-win." Unexpectedly, even at this point, Marcus still refused to agree to the divorce. If he didn't agree, I couldn't escape my identity as Mrs. Grace. I didn't want to attend the International Medical Symposium with that title, only to be questioned about relying on the Xie family's wealth to get in. "Grace, I can agree to any other condition except divorce." Marcus looked at me with deep affection. "Aside from divorce, I don't want to discuss anything else." At my words, he pulled out his phone and made a call. A moment later, he hung up. "Grace, I've transferred all the hospital shares to your name. No one will suspend you arbitrarily anymore. Consider this my apology for misjudging you." Marcus raised a hand to rub his temples, looking weary as he leaned back in his chair. I couldn't help but ask, "Marcus, do you know why Sarah gave birth to a deformed child?" Marcus, upon hearing this, opened his eyes and looked at me. His deep eyes enveloped me like an abyss. I raised my phone and sent Marcus all the information the detective had sent me. Children born from Lou's relatives are most likely to be deformed. Sarah is your paternal half-sister. I coldly stated their relationship. Marcus immediately retorted, "Grace, what nonsense are you talking about? There are many causes for fetal malformations, including radiation exposure or certain medications. As a doctor, I shouldn't have to remind you of this." At his words, Sarah, her face pale, stood at the hospital room door. It seemed the sedative had worn off. Her eyes red, she lunged forward, fiercely grabbing my neck. "Grace, what are you saying? How can I be Marcus's sister? I'm supposed to be Mrs. Grace, and you're supposed to be a prominent figure in high society. What nonsense are you spouting? You must be jealous that I'm pregnant and deliberately tampered with my prenatal checkups, which is why I gave birth to a deformed child. Grace, I'm going to kill you. I'm going to avenge my child." Sarah was clearly deranged now, twisting her wrists relentlessly. Just as I was about to suffocate, Marcus pulled Sarah away with one hand. He then instructed a nurse to administer a sedative and had her transferred directly to a psychiatric hospital. Watching being dragged away, I composed myself. "But during Sarah's pregnancy, you always had people meticulously caring for her, ensuring she ate the best nourishing food 3 times a day. How could she have possibly been exposed to radiation exposure or certain medications? Do you know why her mother left the Xie family?" I continued to ask. Marcus's face turned pale, his mind involuntarily recalling his childhood. Eleanor had left the Xie family because she broke Elizabeth's cherished bracelet. In a fit of rage, William had expelled Eleanor and Sarah from the Xie family. He still remembered Sarah crying that day, saying she didn't want them to be separated. Eleanor had also gotten on her knees, begging him to intercede for Sarah, to let her stay with the Xie family, but had still forcefully driven them out of the Xie family. Why, vowing never to employ anyone with the surname Sue again. "That's because your mother learned about Sarah's true identity. Out of respect for the years she had been married to your father, she decided to let sleeping dogs lie. But she never expected her own son to become involved with her husband's illegitimate daughter and even have a child together." I paused, then continued, "Marcus, whether I'm lying or not, you must know the history of the Xie family better than I do." Marcus shouted, "Butler, arrange for a DNA test between Sarah and me." The butler thought he had misheard and was about to ask again, but he was interrupted by Grandma, who had just emerged from behind him. "There's no need to test," she said. "Sarah is indeed your paternal half-sister. Back then, I only knew your parents argued incessantly because of a child, but I never realized that child was Sarah, the girl you grew up with. It's my fault. When I saw Sarah's eyes and brows resembled your father's, I should have paid more attention, and we wouldn't have committed such a terrible wrong today. Grandma pounded her head and stomped her feet in distress. Marcus was utterly stunned. Grandma, are you sure? How is this possible? How could Sarah be my paternal half-sister? Grace, is this your scheme with Grandma? Are you just trying to see me fall for your tricks, going around in circles like a fool, huh? Marcus questioned, on the verge of collapse. 3 seconds later, he immediately called the caregiver looking after Eleanor. Is your child with William? Eleanor excitedly replied, yes, yes. Has finally remembered his daughter and me? When will he send someone to bring us back to the Xie family? I promise I won't fight young Marcus for the family inheritance. Hearing this, the last shred of doubt in Marcus's eyes completely vanished. He then hung up the phone, his face grim. Eleanor excitedly pulled off her oxygen tube, only to realize the phone had been hung up. Tears welled in her eyes. Of course, she murmured. With his wife still around, how could he possibly send someone to bring us back? Overwhelmed by emotion, she was immediately rushed back to the emergency room. Marcus looked at the call notifications popping up on the screen, impatiently and decisively turning off his phone. Grace, what are you trying to achieve by saying all this now? To force you to get a divorce, I replied coldly. I've reasoned with you time and again, but you repeatedly refused. I had no choice but to find another way. Marcus froze for a moment. He rubbed his temples in resignation. I've told you before, divorce is absolutely out of the question. Then I'll have no choice but to publicly expose this scandal within the Xie family. At that point, I highly doubt you'll still refuse to agree to a divorce. I raised my phone, saying coldly. After all, publicly revealing a scandal within the prominent family would inevitably impact the business. What's more, the Xie family is currently undergoing business restructuring. If a scandal breaks out now, I don't believe he'll be able to remain as steadfast as he is. Marcus's composed expression immediately changed. After much deliberation, he gritted his teeth and said, fine, I agree to the divorce. Smiling, I handed him the divorce agreement again. His fingers trembling, he flipped to the last page and quickly scrawled his name. Holding the signed divorce agreement, I turned and left the hospital. Free from the shackles of this prominent family marriage, I could finally be myself. Just as I was leaving the hospital, a nurse handed Marcus the IVF medical records I had left behind earlier. Marcus stared, dumbfounded, at the thick stack of IVF records. And when he saw the words IVF successful, clearly written in black and white on the last record, he went insane. Immediately, the photos I had sent him earlier, along with the abortion certificate, flashed through his mind. He collapsed to his knees, utterly broken. Gra. Ndma quickly asked, Marcus, what's wrong? Marcus. Marcus's voice trembled, a hoarse whisper escaping his lips. Grandma, I killed my child with Grace. The divorce agreement nearby was blown off the chair by the wind, and an abortion registration records happened to fall out. Grandma gasped in shock upon seeing it, her eyes rolled back, and she collapsed into unconsciousness again. After instructing the butler to look after Grandma, Marcus pulled out his phone to call me as he rushed outside. But no matter how many times he called, it wouldn't connect, because I had already blocked him. Along with WhatsApp. Marcus saw the prominent red exclamation mark and finally realized he had been blocked. He then immediately called his assistant, make sure the airline stops Grace, she absolutely cannot board that plane, or you're out of the Xie family. With that, he immediately hung up. He drove straight to the airport. But he was still a step too late. I had already changed my plane ticket, and there was no way he could stop me. Just then, a delayed text message popped up on his phone, confirming that the divorce proceedings were complete. Enraged, he slammed his phone down with a furious backhand. Watching the clouds drift past the window, I gazed at the naturally formed sunset clinging to the horizon ahead. My restless heart was instantly calmed. I opened my phone, took a picture of the sunset, and casually posted it on social media. With a simple caption, Happy Divorce, Ms. Grace. Now, finally, no one could arbitrarily hinder my career. I could devote myself to medical research with peace of mind.